Hello, I'm Valerie and I'm going to be teaching you the class on making quilt labels on your computer. Now if you're on the Quilting Bee University webpage for this class, at the top of the page you should see a link to print out a handout version of the contents of the web page. If you want to, please pause the video, print this out, and use this to follow along with the video. I'll be doing the following along with this on the video too, and you can make notes as we go along, and I think it should all go very smoothly. So, let's get started. Using the computer to make quilt labels is really quite easy. You just need to know your tools. I'm going to be going through two tools that I use to make quilt labels. There are more options than these tools, but this is what I know. So first we're going to use Microsoft Publisher and Microsoft Word. Those are two editing, Word type editing software options you can use. You can also use photo editing options such as Paint Shop Pro or Photoshop, but those are really big, complicated, complex programs, and I'm not going to get into those on this video. However, Publisher and Word, it's really quite easy to make labels. So, in order to make your labels, you will need printable fabric sheets, and an inkjet printer, and a computer, of course. There are many different options of printable fabric sheets that you can purchase. If you don't want to purchase them, you can make them yourself. I've not done that personally. There are lots of tutorials on the web. You can look for those. I've got a couple of links on the web page and in your handout, so you can use that instead if you wish. So now, let's get onto the computer and start making our design. Okay, first we're going to use Microsoft Word 2007 to make quilt labels. So, in order to get 4 labels on a sheet, I like to divide the sheet up into forts. With Microsoft Word, the easiest way to do this is with a table. So I've got Microsoft Word started and I've got a blank document here. In order to make my labels wider than they are tall, which is the way I like them, I need to change the orientation to landscape. So I'm going to go up to my menus at the top. You have Home, Insert, then Page Layout. Click on Page Layout. Directly under that is the word Orientation. Click on that, then choose Landscape, and as you can see, my page is now landscape. Next, in order to get the most space as possible for my label design, I'm going to want to change the margins. So same up here, right to the left of orientation says margins. Click on that, then I like narrow, which gives me margins of about 1/2 inch around the edge of the page. Now the best way to make this into 4 equal spaces is to use a table, so that's what I'll be doing. If I go to the Insert tab, which is just to the left of Page Layout, here's Table. I'll choose click on Table. I'll highlight a total of 4 squares, so it says 2 by 2 table. If I then click, my table is created, and up here my table tools have appeared. We'll need that for later. So personally, I like the contents of my label to be centered. So I'm going to highlight everything here, and then I'm going to click on the Layout tab right there, and from here I can click on one of these buttons over here under the Alignment section, so I can have everything centered inside my label. So I'm going to click Align Top Center. It's in the top row middle button. Now I clicked on that, and now everything should be centered. See how my cursor now is in the middle of the table right there. Okay. Now, I know this doesn't look like a whole lot yet. Now is the fun part. Now I start filling it in. So, one trick here, if I just hit enter, my table moves on me, and I don't want that. So, I have to type a little something, hit enter, go back up, erase those, and now I have a little space at the top of my label. Now, let's insert an image. So, I'm going to go over to the Insert tab. There's Home, then Insert. Click on that. Now I'm going to choose the picture icon. I choose that, And now I can go to the directory where I keep my clip art. So I have a directory that I save all the clip art I've downloaded from off the web. And now I'm going to go and find the picture that I want to be at the top of my label. And there it is. It's a little banner of flowers. Now that's really big. I don't know if I want it so big. So I can resize that by clicking in this corner and moving it to the side. Now it's a little bit smaller. And I'd like to have two of those going across the page to make it a little pretty. So I can say right click on it, choose copy, put my cursor just to the side of it, right click again, say paste. Now I've got two pictures. Hit enter a couple of times, and I've got a nice banner at the top of my label. Now we can add some text, whatever we want our quilt label to say. Now remember, the elements that we want in a quilt label include the name of the person receiving the quilt if you know it, the date that the quilt was completed, which can be just month and year, your name or your quilt group's name, washing instructions if you like, a poem or a meaningful quote if you like, and of course the graphic elements that we just added. So let's see, I'm just gonna make up something for you here. This quilt is made for Nicole Bradley. Next line, made by Valerie Bradley, May 2012. Okay, and a quote, let's just come up with something silly. To be or not to be, that is the question. By William Shakespeare. Washing instructions. Wash in warm water. Oops. Dry in cool dryer. Remove promptly. Okay. That looks a little bit boring, so I'm going to now take this text at the top and I want to change it to something a little more fun. This is one I've used recently called curls, and let's make it a little bit bigger so it stands out. I think that looks pretty nice. Now let's also make a nice banner at the bottom. So I clicked on this to highlight it. I can copy, come down here underneath the words and paste again. And there I have my label, all done. Now you want to make sure that you save your file so that should something happen, a power outage, or a cat comes along and chews through the cord, you can save your work and you don't lose it all. So now you have 1, 2, 3, 4 more spaces, 3 more spaces that you can make labels in. If you're making many copies of the same label, all you have to do is move your mouse cursor just to the side, and if you can see, it's turned into a little arrow that's kind of pointing up to the right like this. If I do that and click with my left mouse button, it highlights everything. Then I can use Control-C on my keyboard to copy, or I can up here click copy, put my cursor over here, and I can use Control-V to paste it in, or here I'll do it in this one here, I can use the paste icon here. And now I have 4 copies of my label ready to be printed. And that is how we make a label in Microsoft Word. Okay, next I'm going to show you how to make quilt labels using Microsoft Publisher. I'm using Microsoft Publisher 2007, that's what I have on my computer. I have to say, I really love Microsoft Publisher for doing quilt labels because you have ultimate control over where you place your design elements. Microsoft Word thinks about lines across the page, whereas Publisher, anything goes. So, in order to make sure my label will fit on a quarter of a page, so I can have 4 labels per page like usual, the easiest way to do that in Microsoft Publisher is to use a greeting card template. So here I've got Microsoft Publisher 2007 open. Along the left side of my screen is a list of publication types. I'm going to go down to where it says greeting cards and click on that. and it'll give me a whole bunch of templates that I can choose from. It really doesn't matter which one you choose because we're going to delete all the automatically generated stuff in it anyway. So I'm going to just choose this one over here called Echo. I double click on that, and here it is. This is a quarter of my page here. If you look down at the bottom, oh, you can't quite see it. Let me move this. If you look down at the bottom of the screen here, you see 1, 2, 3, 4. It automatically divides it up into 4 pages for you right down in here. And that'll print on one paper, so it looks kind of like that. So, let's get started making our design. First, we need to get rid of all this. So I'm going to start out over here in the gray with my mouse. I'm going to click, hold, and drag across the page. And when I let go, everything has been selected here. I can just hit my delete key and it's all gone. I've got a clean page to work with. Okay, now let's add our border. This time, because we can use any kind of element we want, let's use a bigger, fancier border. So over here, there's a picture that looks like mountains with a sun over it. I'm going to click on that. Click on Picture from File from the menu that appears. And now, I don't know if you can see this, my cursor has turned into a crosshair. I click that on my page and it opens up the screen that I can use to find my clip art. I'm going to go back to the same place I was before for my clip art, and I'm going to choose this one right here. I double click, and here it is. It's kind of small, so now we can resize it to whatever we want. So I'm dragging it so the top left corner is about where I want it to be. I click on the bottom right hand corner, and then I can pull that and make it as big as I want it to be. And let's just center that a little bit better, and there is my border. How easy was that? Okay, next, let's put some text in. So again, over here, there's a square that's got a big letter A and some lines in it. That's your text box. Click on that. Again, you get a crosshair, then click anywhere. This is where my text will go. So I'm going to move this up here like that. I'm going to resize it and make it nice and big like this, and just add a little more space, and now I can start typing like before. Again, I like my text to be centered, so up here you've got your font, your size, bold, italic, underline, and then your alignment for your text. I'm going to choose center, so everything in my text box is centered now. And let's just type the same thing we did before. This quilt is made for Nicole Bradley. Enter. Made by Valerie Bradley. May 2012. To be or not to be, that is the question. By William Shakespeare. Wash in warm water. Dry in cool dryer. Whoops. Remove promptly. Okay. And again, this is kind of boring. So the text at the top, I'm again going to make it all pretty like I did before. I'm going to use the same curls 20-point font like I did before. Now, I don't know if you noticed this. My bottom text has kind of disappeared, and I have this thing that says A ... That just means my text box is not big enough, and I need to make it a little bit bigger. So I will grab this little circle in the center and pull it down, and my text reappears. That's pretty easy. Now we got all this space down here. What are we going to do? Let's add some more design elements. Let's add another picture. So back over here to the picture frame, the mountains with the sun over it. Click on that, Picture from File, and then click my crosshair anywhere I want. And because I love my daughter, I want to add a heart. So double click, and there is my heart, right about there. I think that looks pretty nice. Now again, if I'm just making one label like this, I'd be pretty much done. But if I need to make more labels, or if I want to copy this label to the other pages, again, like before, I'm going to click up in the gray, drag all the way across down to here, and let go. Now everything here is selected. This time, instead of deleting it, I'm going to use Control-C or Edit Copy to copy all this. Now I'll go down here to where it says page 2. Here's page 2. I have to get rid of all the automatically generated stuff, so again, I'll drag across, hit delete, and it's gone. Now, edit, paste. There it is. I'll move all up to here. There's page 2. Here's page 3. Again, delete that, edit, paste, and let's recenter that. Oop, right about there. Now click down here to page 4. And let's get rid of all that too. And I'll edit, paste, move that into place. And now, if I do File, Print Preview, you can see my page, which looks just like the one I had printed out before. And that is how you make quilt labels with Microsoft Publisher. Okay, now that I've shown you how to design your quilt labels in Microsoft Word and Microsoft Publisher, now we need to print your label design onto your fabric sheets. Every printer is different, so I'll walk you through my printer's way of doing it. Yours should have similar options to mine. So first you need to load your fabric sheet into your printer. My experience has shown that I need to take out all the paper and put in one fabric sheet at a time in order to prevent it from accidentally grabbing the fabric sheet and some paper. You get half your label printed on the fabric, half of it on the paper, and you've ruined your fabric sheet. If you buy them, they're not cheap, so you want to avoid this. My personal preference is the EQ Printables fabric sheets. That's what's worked best for me, but there are many other options out there, so find what works best for you. Alright, so I don't need to print out a whole ton of quilt labels that say this quilt was made for Nicole Bradley in May 2012. She's not getting that many quilts. So I have here a design for the Busy Bees comfort quilts that I want to print out. And again, it's in Microsoft Publisher. I've got pages 1, 2, 3, 4. If I click on my File, Print Preview, you'll see I'll have 4 quilt labels, which is what I like to have. So now from here, I'll click on my print icon. I can either use a print icon if I know that my options are set up, but let's just double check. So File, and then Print, gives me my printer options menu. When printing onto fabric, you want to use your best quality printing to get as much ink as possible onto your fabric sheet. So if you have a Preferences or a Properties, first I need to choose my HP PhotoSmart printer. I've got 2, the inkjet and a LaserJet. So HP PhotoSmart, that's my printer, my inkjet. Now I click on Properties. And down here where it says Print Quality, right here. Right now it says Automatic. I just want to change that to say Best. That way I'll get the best possible printout on fabric. I click on OK, and then I click on Print. And if you can hear that, that's my printer going. I'll be back in a moment to show you the outcome. And now we have a wonderful sheet full of quilt labels. So now it's time to go prepare it and put it on your quilt. Okay, now that our labels have been printed, we have to remove the backing. Usually there is a plastic or a paper back on the fabric to keep it stable while it's being printed. You need to peel that off, and then you can discard that plastic. Alright, and now we just have to cut the quilt labels apart. So since we did it in equal quarters, we could just cut it in equal quarters. So it's 8.5 by 11. That means 5.5 this way. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.5. And and then 4 1/4 this way. 1, 2, 3, 4 1/4. Right about there. And now you have 4 quilt labels. Next, to prepare it to go on the quilt. Okay, now we're at our ironing board and it's time to prepare our label for being attached to the quilt. Now I like to do it the easy way, and I like to attach this edge and this edge into the quilt when I'm doing the binding. And this edge here and this edge here are the only two that need to be hand hemmed. So the top and the right edge, we'll need to fold those over so we don't have any raw edges. So flip it over. This is the top of my label here. I'm going to fold it over and just finger crease it in place. The pre-printed fabric sheets are stiff enough that for the time being that's all we need to do. Now the right side, I'll flip that over and finger press that into place also. At this corner here, we need to fold that under so that it does not look weird or have raw edges or anything. So what I do is I fold it in as a triangle like this. And then I hold that in place. Let me see if I can do it with my seam ripper so you can see better what I'm doing. And then I take this edge that I've already finger pressed and I fold that over like such. And then I need to do the same on this side here. Fold it over. And that gives me a nice sharp corner right here. I'll show you better in just a minute because right now I'm going to use my nice hot iron. I'm going to press this in place. Nice shot of steam to set that crease. And now, if you look at it from the front, you can see right here we have a nice crisp corner that will look very nice when we get it on our quilt. Now, let's attach it to the quilt itself. Okay, here I have my quilt. It's all quilted. The edges have been trimmed of extra batting and backing. I have my label and I have my pins. So what I will do is I will flip this over to the back. I'll take my label and I'll line up the raw edge here and the raw edge here of my label with the raw edges of the quilt. Now I'll pin it in place. I only use about 3 pins. One towards the edge there to make sure that gets caught nice and flat. One at this edge here to make sure it gets caught nice and flat when we go over it with our sewing machine. And then to keep this from folding over and getting caught in such a way we don't want it to, I put a pin in right about like this, just to keep it steady. Once I've pinned it like this, I just attach my binding to the quilt like I would any other quilt. And if you see over here, I've got one already sewn on for you. Let's see if I can zoom in here for you. So if you can see, right along this edge here, and right along this edge here, the label has been sewn in along with the binding, so that all I have to do then is fold that binding up and around and stitch it in place to hide the raw edge of the label. And these other 2 edges here will be stitched on by hand. And to show you that, I have this quilt with the label all finished. Let me zoom out just a little bit. And as you can see, on this label, this edge here and this edge here have both been stitched into place by hand with white thread. My raw ends of my thread, my knots and everything are hidden in the binding, and then the binding has been sewn on to hide the raw edge of the quilt and the label. And that is how you attach a label to a quilt back. I hope you enjoyed this lesson, and I thank you very much for joining me.